Relax. You gotta just chill out, man.
What is up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night, just before 9:15. Where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan? And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, are you having a glorious evening?
Yeah, I'm having a pretty good evening. So things have been, as you well know, a little crazy around here for a couple of weeks. But for some reason, myself and my wife and my son all were in great moods tonight, and we were all three very accomplished with stuff today. So we were all feeling good about that. Man, we've needed that.
I know what you mean, how sometimes it's just like, oh, man, I have so much stuff to do. You don't feel like you're getting any of it done. And then some days it's just like, man, I'm getting a bunch of stuff done. Today was one of those days where I was doing a whole bunch of stuff, and it seemed like I still was never catching up because I was preparing for the Pittsburgh Steelers getting their roster down to 53 players. That's what we're talking about tonight, Steelers fans. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the main question is, what's next for the Steelers 53-man roster? Or where do they go from here? That kind of idea of this is what it is. Because think about it. Rich, when's the last time? Can you even remember a time when all the information was as available? You didn't have to look up the 53-man roster in the newspaper the next day or anything like that, like back in the day. But do you remember any time recently where the 53 players that they had when they first cut down was the same 53 players that they had to choose from when they had to do their inactives for week one?
No, that does not happen very often. There's typically at least one or two changes between this time and the first game.
Yeah.
And I expect there probably will be again. It's just going to be what?
Yeah. So we're going to dive into that, but we got a couple other things to dive into briefly first. First, this is our first show doing this together with our good brand new sponsorship. We are sponsored by across Steel Curtain Network, DraftKings. There's information about DraftKings on these podcast shows. I got to make sure it gets into the YouTube one. I didn't have it for the live show, but it'll be there for the replay. All the great stuff when it comes to what we need to have. Actually, it might be there even by the end of the show. When it comes to information with DraftKings and things that you can do, we have stuff. Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so check out DraftKings Sportsbook for all your sportsbook needs. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code CURTAIN. That's code CURTAIN. For new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Offer expires September 19th.
All right, now NFL Plus Premium, I already have that. I ended up, if you have Steelers season tickets, if you're out there and season ticket holder, don't realize this, you can get a 40% discount on that for the year. I ended up going with NFL Plus Premium this year because I cut my cable cord recently and I didn't get NFL Red Zone, and I love that channel. So I'm actually getting it now through NFL Plus Premium. Plus now they have all the new cool next gen stats. You can sign up for an NFL Pro account, which I still have to do. That's pretty cool. But when it comes to DraftKings, I use DraftKings all the time. I use DraftKings all the time. Now I do it. This is where you can do it for daily fantasy and things like that. And various different contests. I actually just use it for regular sports betting that is legal in the state where I live. And when I actually travel to states where it's legal, I use their online casino. I do draft. I have the DraftKings app. I do all that good stuff there. So that information is out there if you need it. But that's not the only thing we have going on. What else do we have going on, Rich?
Wait a minute. I was looking.
John
You were asked the question. Oh, no. It was before that. Hold on. Looking. Where is it?
Did someone else say it first?
I think you were looking for this.
Are we having a Survivor League this year? Kathy asked, and it's like, yeah, because John S. put it out there. It is a Mel Blount signed mini helmet. And for those of you here live, here it is. I have it here. I'm trying to get it to make sure there's no glare. There it is with the Steelers logo. If I can turn it without the glare, you can see Mel Blount, HOF 89. That's the year he went into the Hall of Fame. If you're looking to get in the Survivor League, here's the deal. I'm going to try to put the link out here in the live chat. I don't know if it'll actually come through. It could get spam filtered out. But I'm at least going to try. If not, you can go to steelcardnetwork.com. It's much further down. I'm not even sure if it's on the main page. It will get bumped again sometime soon. But with all the news, with the 90-man roster going down to 53 and those kind of things, we didn't want that stuff to get buried necessarily by the contest. But I just attempted to put the link out there. We're going to see if it actually comes through. I'm trying. We'll see. But that's a link that you can, that takes you straight there. You don't even have to enter a number or a code. It should just have it. If you have a Yahoo ID, it goes in. If you have any problems, reach out to me. Email, Twitter. I'll send you the link. All you got to do is get in. It's free. It's free. We should.
Afton said it worked.
Okay. So the cool thing is, if you've never done the Survivor League before, all you got to do is pick one game. Pick one game the first week. If that team wins, you move on. If they lose, you're out. If you move on to the next week, you got to pick again. The thing is, the only caveat with that is Sherry says it came to a Facebook as well. Once you pick a team, you can't pick that team again. So if you pick the Steelers to beat Atlanta week 1, and they do, you can't pick them to beat Denver. You got to pick a different team. So as the season goes on, your pickings get a little bit more slim. Then to narrow it down, we have it. If we get to week 15 and we don't have a winner, you got to pick two. But if we get that far, I organize it, some various things. It's fun. It's a way to build community. I'm in there. Rich is in there. I know Jeff's in there. Corey's in there.
Did you make your pick yet?
The Steelers is in there. What's that?
Did you make your pick yet?
I did.
Yeah, my pick's been made already.
Okay. The last time I looked, which was much earlier today, where I look at you, I've checked the number of times. You hadn't made it. But just so you know, it's limited to 100 people. If it fills up, there'll be a new link because we start another one. We will fill up as many of these up until 1 o'clock on Sunday, September 8th, when the Steelers kick off. That's your deadline every week to make your pick. Once that's done, you obviously can't get your pick for week 1. We'll just keep doing more leagues and more leagues and more leagues. You got to outlast everybody, and this right here could be yours. All right. That was a lot of business we had to get through. So, let's get back to the 53.
Let's get back to the 53.
Let's get back to it, okay? I know Wes was the first comment in there. He's talking about more for the Steelers to do, which is what we're going to get to. But before we can talk about the more that the Steelers can do, it's kind of important to know who's there, right?
Correct.
So let's go over quickly who made it on the 53 and those who did not. I mean, not everybody that did not, because, Rich, this article is a little bit difficult when I go to do it each year, because when the Steelers make their announcement finally, which came much closer to 4:30 than it did to 4 o'clock by the time they announced it, I kept hitting refresh on their webpage until finally I got it there before I got it on X. But they tell you who they cut. And then you got to go through and figure out, okay, well, then who did it? Who's the actual 53? And at the time I wrote the article, they had 54 players listed because they had not yet moved Cam Sutton to the suspended list. So they had 54 players, and they had one of those players that I didn't know made it because they didn't have him on the depth chart, but they had everybody else. That was a surprise player that I'll get to eventually. But there are other moves that they made along with the 53. They kept Cole Holcomb on PUP, but really they moved him from the physically unable to perform list, which is the preseason version, to the regular season version. You can't move to the one for the regular season if you weren't on it during the preseason. That's the only thing it's there for. Yeah. And the cool thing about that is people are like, well, does it matter if it's that or if it's IR? Yeah, because even though it's 4 games for both of them minimum that you have to miss, if someone's on the PUP list, they don't count as a designated to return IR spot because you're only allowed to bring back 8 players all season.
Look,
No, yeah.
if you really think of it, Cole Holcomb is a perfect example of what that pup list is for.
Yes.
That pup list really is there if you think about it. Guys that were injured before we got into training camp and things like that. Guys that could not do anything coming into camp, allows you to keep them as yours, continue rehabbing them.
Yeah.
Without having to take up an injured reserve. I think of the pup as they've been there long term. And I think of the injured reserve as since we've gotten into training camp, somebody's gotten dinged up.
Okay. Well, here exactly. So that's what IR and that stuff is for injuries this year.
Yes.
PUP is for injuries that are lingering from last year. Now, a great example of this even is the Steelers' beginning of training camp. Cole Holcomb went on PUP. That has to be a football injury from playing NFL football. Dean Lowry went on PUP. Why? Because it was where he was hurt from last year and was on IR. Cordero Patterson was not on PUP. He was on the non-football injury list because he didn't hurt it playing in an NFL game or practice last year that rolled into this year. So those are those differences. The Steelers put 2 players on IR that aren't designated to return. Their season is over. One of them is 6th-round draft pick Ryan Watts. So I know some people are like, oh, it's good that was just a stinger. Just a stinger is not always what it's cracked up to be. Jerry Dulock reported it's a more serious injury than what the Steelers believe. The fact that they put him out for the season could go along with that, or maybe the Steelers just like, yeah, we're not going to mess around. They only have 2 spots that they could have done designated to return. They already used them. And we'll talk about those players shortly. But, well, you're also remember, Trenton Thompson went on IR with the stinger last year, and he said he couldn't train all offseason. And the Steelers ended up cutting him this year because he just it was that long term. I still bring up the example of Ryan Shazier in 2015. That was the first game I watched in my season ticket seats that I have, where he went bonkers against the 49ers and had like 15 tackles, got a stinger late in the game, and then missed the next couple games. So sometimes just a stinger is good. Like, honestly, just a stinger would have been really good when you talked about Shazier's career-ending injury. That would have been a good thing. Yes. But a stinger can still be something that is dealing with the nerves and can last a long time.
And take it from someone, take it from somebody who sits here and due to a lingering injury from the days of my youth have nerve issues.
Yeah,
they're awful. It's awful.
Yeah. And like Afton says, I'll take a stinger over a spinal fracture. But Wes was asking, could someone explain to me what a stinger really is? It's when you have something going on where in essence, you're almost sometimes a stinger could be something you can even come back in the same game. It's all the extent of it, but it's dealing to where it's a nerve injury. Yeah, it's a nerve injury. Like, honestly, it could have called it. It wasn't a neck thing. I got in a scrimmage my senior year of high school. I got a face mask into my left elbow that actually they said chipped a bone, and that's why I didn't get feeling back on the outside of my hand for 6 weeks. I still kept playing and everything, but that's not your typical stinger. But that's just an example of another kind of nerve. It's where something happens where it's pinching or damaging or something going on where there's a nerve, and it could make you lose your strength because of the nerve issues and everything. So, and
this is kind of breaking down a little more what happens with that, having been a person with nerve issues. So if the damage happens at the nerve and the nerve is damaged, say all the way down your arm, okay, and needs to repair itself. A nerve repairs itself at a rate of 1 millimeter per day.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've got several people that have chimed in with good stuff. John Edwards is a nerve injury that occurs in football and other contact sports where the nerves in the neck and shoulder are stretched or compressed. Google. That's where you got that one from. And, I also put here how Mr. Woodside answered as well. It's basically, where your nerve is not acting properly. And it could be extremely minor. It could be pretty major. So they're nothing to joke about. All right, so we got to keep rolling through this roster.
Yep, keep rolling.
This is some good information. So he's done for the season. Julius Welschoff, if I said it correctly, that's the German guy that could have been an extra guy on the practice squad that wouldn't have counted because of the international pathway program. He's out for the year with his knee injury that he had in the last game. He had 2 sacks in the last preseason game.
I know.
But he's out.
He was playing really well.
I was like, he's going on the practice squad. The only question is they decided to keep him. Otherwise, I just wasn't sure. He had good moments, he had bad moments. That's a young player. Although he's not all that young, he's just not an experienced player because I think he's 27. Yeah. So they can't come back. The 2 players that can come back are Dylan Cook and Jeremiah Moon. They will miss the first 4 games, at least for the Steelers, but they are designated to return. They didn't have to stay on the 53 for a day because of the new rule this year. So that's the players not on, or that were moves that are still with the Steelers, but they're not on the 53. I'm going to go through this fast. Quarterbacks, Wilson, Fields, and Allen. Running backs, Harris, Ward, and Patterson. I'm not going to expand on it more unless it sees me.
Yeah, both those positions, no surprises.
No surprises. Really. They could have maybe kept another running back, but there's already news of an outside running back to the practice squad. It's a report. We'll probably get something official with that with the Steelers when they can. Wide receiver, 5 of them. Pickens, Jefferson, CA3, Roman Wilson, and Scotty Miller. Des Fitzpatrick is who I thought would make it. He was released. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't get picked up by anyone else if he's back on the practice squad. Some people were, other in the national media were surprised about Quez Watkins. I'm like, you haven't been paying attention. He wasn't.
Yeah, he was not in the mix, in my opinion.
Okay. Tight ends, I got these right in my prediction. Freiermuth, Washington, Hayward, and Pruitt. It seemed like, I don't know if the Steelers were hiding Hot Rod or if he just wasn't doing as much in this camp in preseason as he did last year. But I also think he's a practice squad candidate, Rodney Williams. Offensive line, because Cook went out, that meant, wow, there's really only 8 that were definite, but they added the 9th that really made sense. It's Jones, Daniels, Frazier, Sam Malu, Moore, Fautanu, McCormick, Anderson, and center Ryan McCullum. So he's on the roster, probably as a backup center. It'll be interesting to see if he's active on game day or if they go in another direction. Anything you want to say about anything on the offense before we jump to defense?
Yeah, no, nothing overly jumped out at me as that surprising in that, except for maybe, like you said, Des Fitzpatrick, I think, was probably potentially in the mix at wide receiver, just came down to a numbers thing.
Yeah, and I would have kept him over Scotty Miller because the thing with Scotty Miller is he's the vested veteran, and you could have just said, hey, we're going to put you in the practice squad. He wouldn't go through waivers.
True.
I'm fairly certain Scotty Miller's a vested veteran. He's had 4 years in the NFL, I would assume. I might be wrong with that. Maybe I'm wrong with that. But he at least would have been a possibility there to do that. But that's not the way they played it. That's not what they were doing. And to me, McCullum, as soon as Cook was on IR, it being McCullum made perfect sense.
Yes.
So, okay, defense. So there was 24 on offense. So they skimped a little bit. Defensive line is 7/8. The way the Steelers listed, it's 8, but you'll see why I say 7/8 when we get there. It's Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, DeMarvin Leal, wink, okay, Montravius Adams, Dean Lowry, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Logan Lee. My question before I thought it was going to be Loudermilk or Lee, and I even brought up the question last week on the website is, does it even have to be or could it be neither? Come to find out, it's both. I guess they didn't want to try to get Logan Lee to the practice squad. I think because he didn't get to show that much in the preseason, he might have been a candidate that he could have. I also wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers make a move if he's a guy that they hold on to for now and let everyone else get everything else a little bit more settled. And then if they have to release him before week 1, see if they can then do that. They tried that with Tuzar Skipper, and that didn't work the first time. That might not be their plan at all. But if anyone out of that group, I could see that being the case. But the reason I say DeMarvin Leal kind of is because the Steelers only kept 3 official outside linebackers in Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig. That means Leal, who played there, even though when he was playing out there, you notice a lot of time, I was like, was he in a 3-point stance or 4-point stance? It looked kind of interesting sometimes because it seemed like it was a little bit different. But he was still out there doing his thing.
Yep, he was.
I think he's your emergency guy. I love the whole notion of this.
I think we've always said he's kind of a flex guy.
Yeah. But let's just say this. I don't want to see 3 and 4 going in for 1 and 2 at the same time. I just don't want to see that.
No.
I so much more want to see a 3-man rotation because my goodness was Nick Herbig really good in the preseason again this year, just like last year. So I want to see him with more snaps. I think when it comes to Watt or Highsmith, you kind of, short rotation one of them. You don't want to wait for them both to get tired at the same time. So you're looking for, hey, you might not be tired yet, but we're going to get him out there. We're going to get Nick out there for you, Alex, because you're going to go back in and Nick's going to go on for TJ.
Right.
It could be a great 3-man group if they get it down right. That could be exciting. Inside linebacker was Queen, Roberts, Peyton Wilson, Mark Robinson, and Tyler Matakevich. They did keep both Robinson and Matakevich.
Yep.
So they went all 5. They did 5 corners and 5 safeties. Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, Trice Bishop, and Darius Rush. They did not keep Thomas Graham as the other potential nickel. I thought maybe they would keep both in case one didn't work, but they just went with Beanie Bishop. That's really the only person there from the corners that I could see doing that, unless they're going to cover it more with the safety position, where they have Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, KZ, Killebrew, who's your special teams guy, and then when they're more than one Elliott, they kept Jalen Elliott, who actually was not even on their depth chart. His name got taken off the depth chart when it went out there. So that tells me he was probably the 53rd guy with that one. Anything you want to say about more specifically with the secondary or the defense in general?
No, it was the interesting part was going ahead with the 8 defensive linemen because you thought that there was a chance maybe they go 7. Only 3 at the outside linebacker because I feel you get that flexibility in Leal, which, by the way, isn't Leal almost like a version, in some ways the way he plays and his size, isn't he more Lamar Woodley like? Lamar Woodley was a pretty big guy for an edge rusher for us. And and I think that's why you can flex Leal out there because honestly, he's kind of built in that mold.
Yes.
So, the 5th inside linebacker wasn't too surprised. Honestly, Mark Robinson played his way back onto this squad this preseason. Well, that guy made improvements from where he was last year to what I was seeing this year. His lateral movement has improved.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with him. I'll be honest. What I thought was, okay, it's fine. He was doing some better stuff in coverage, but man, he was getting in trouble in his run defense the first couple games. But you know what? And there's a lot of this is PFF scores. He was one of the highest run defenders for the Steelers via PFF in this last game. So he finally, kind of put it a little bit more together. I was really kind of worried that I'm like, man, this isn't good if he's doing better against the pass, but not as good against the run. And he was doing really good on special teams. So I think you're right there.
I think he came in with the idea of I've worked on some stuff. I really want to try to showcase what I've done on that passing game. And then use that last game to say, see, I can still do this too. Now it's a matter of of really just will he ever get to the point where he puts it all together at the same time he could become the player Shannon White has always wanted him to be.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because Sherry Richards says this. It says Dirty Red and Robinson are fighting to keep their job when Holcomb comes back. That's assuming he comes back.
Oh, that's right. There's no guarantee Holcomb's back out there this year.
But this is good. Now you're getting in-game. I'm not sure both of them get a helmet on game day.
No, I'm not sure they both do either.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's funny because then Afton also says, who goes when Moon comes back? I think it's a defensive lineman, is what it ends up being because of just the numbers game. They kept the extra one there because really it's not 8-3. It's more 7-4, but you don't want to say that because honestly, I think Leal's going to play defensive line unless he's needed for the extra.
And outside linebacker. Right. He's going to play.
If you kept a fourth outside linebacker, it's mainly going to be for special teams. So they opted to do that with the inside linebackers. Yeah.
Yes.
And with safety, when you got Jalen Elliott, it's going to be interesting to see. To me, I hate to say it, but Jalen Elliott is probably a guy, and honestly, Darius Rush even. I think they're the guys, if the Steelers make moves in the secondary, they're the ones who their roster spot is probably the least secure.
Agree.
I don't know if you agree with that or not. So
I do.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We went a little bit long. We shouldn't have here. We should have got our break in a little bit sooner, but we're going to come back and then talk about what's next with the 53-man roster now that we've actually gone over it. So if you're with us here, YouTube, Facebook, X, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on the audio, stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax.
Rich, you are relaxed and not worried, or you still think there's more work to be done with this 53-man roster?
There's more. Let me put it this way: there's more work that's probably going to be done, because it's Omar.
Yeah,
It is the con man. It is the wrath of Khan. It is he's going to be working it, and if there's a deal to be made or something better that he can do for this roster that he feels he can get an upgrade, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So there's plenty of different things that we'll be able to talk about. We might be talking about more next week that are within the Steelers roster. We're going to kind of focus a little bit more now on, how the roster could change. Because yes, we could get into the conversation about the tackles. We could do that a bunch, but those are guys that are on the roster, and that's a little bit more to come. We don't even have a practice squad yet. It's going to make a big difference when we get the Steelers practice squad on Wednesday. Chances are, if it's like the last couple years, you're going to get about half or one or two more. You're going to get 8 to 10 players probably announced in the first wave, because the last couple of years, the Steelers did not sign their full practice squad until days after they could start to sign. What's up?
Dave, I have a question.
What's your question?
No, I have a statement. You don't count very well. So, hang tight. Just a minute.
What's that?
So, to finish out the Steelers roster, the special teams players, Chris Boswell, Cam Johnston, and Christian Kuntz.
Did I go past them? You know what? This is why I'm confused. You know why? I did the breaking news podcast earlier, and I started with them.
Yeah. So
I was thinking I already had.
Nope, you hadn't. So I had to get us put from 50 to 53. Okay. Had to get those last three in there.
Yeah. Yep.
The three that there was really no argument about from the time the Steelers walked into camp to where they are now.
Yes. And no, they didn't keep the extra kicker on the 53 to see if they could trade him like they did last year with the extra punter. Remember that? That was a day that went by that. And I'm like, but also remember last year was the time where you could. No, that one doesn't make sense if you had to wait to put someone on IR. But I'm like, maybe they had wink, wink, nudge, nudge, or they knew they were going to be looking outside for someone. I think it was Desmond King that they picked up last year and then finally got rid of the punter, who ended up where the Steelers all were trying to trade him to anyway. I know a lot of people are wanting to talk about the biggest thing, what's next for the Steelers 53-man roster. What is it, Rich? Where do you think they're not done? It's the receiver.
Yeah, that's probably in the wide receiver room. That's probably the biggest. If you were to guess at where there's still a move to be made, it's there.
And I'm going to be honest.
Not to say that it will happen,
yes.
and that stuff wouldn't happen elsewhere. But right now, if you ask just about anybody, probably about 90% of Steeler fans are going to say, if there's one thing the Steelers are going to do, it's going to be make a move in a wide receiver. At the wide receiver.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be nearly as earth-shattering as what people think.
Yeah.
Would
you please, do you want to do it now?
What?
Address it? So.
What am I addressing now?
This one.
Okay. Yes. He's pounding the table for John Mechie, the third. That's in Houston. I have some bad news for you, West. It's not impossible, but based on who the Texans released, why would they be interested in trading one of the receivers they kept? They ended up having to release the guys that they would have kept in his place. So I don't think a trade is happening there. That's the thing.
Again, not impossible.
No, it's not impossible.
But not as probable as if you'd have asked me the same question yesterday.
Honestly, chances are if the Steelers were going to trade for a wide receiver, it probably would have happened before 4 o'clock today. Because teams would have wanted to trade in order to not lose somebody else. That's the general thought behind it. So it's not that it's impossible. It's just not as likely. Now, I like the other thing that you said here, Wes. You said even if it's Noah Brown, he's a good size wide receiver. Yes. Honestly, I know there was the guy, also the I can't remember his name. Brown, maybe I can't remember. No. This is Noah Brown. No, who was the guy from Denver? What was his name?
Yeah, hold on. I was gonna see if I could go back and find him here real quick.
But anyway, it doesn't matter because the reports are he's signing with Detroit, first to the practice squad in order to.
Tim Patrick.
Tim Patrick.
From yes.
I thought it was Tim, and I thought it. Yeah. So, but to me, this Noah Brown, that's an interesting name out there. I really do. I think that he could really help the Steelers a lot if the Steelers, you ask me, would you rather have him or Scotty Miller? I wouldn't have to think twice. I wouldn't have to think twice.
Yeah.
I don't even know that they would necessarily cut one of their own receivers while they try to get someone else like to up speed. It could be one of the extra defensive players. Could still be the cut. It wouldn't have to be at that position. But I like that one. That one would be good. But I want people to understand this. I don't know someone said this on X, and it was after I actually already said it to somebody else. I'm like, yeah, what do you know? Here you go. Just picking up a number 2 wide receiver that's out there right now is extremely unlikely. Even if you're picking up someone like Brown from Houston. So people are like, there's your number 2 wide receivers don't grow on trees where they're just
jettisoned.
At the end there. You're probably, I'm telling you, Van Jefferson's your number 2. That's just how it is right now, even if they would bring in someone else that's cut. Now, if you were actually trading, that would be a whole different story.
Yes.
But like I said, when did the Steelers trade Kendrick Green, trade Kevin Dotson last year when they traded away? When were they trading 4 players last year? It was it was leading up to that 4 o'clock Tuesday deadline or right around it, just in order to get the whole roster down. So it's just not. If teams really wanted to move someone, chances are they already cut someone that they would have kept in their place. So that's just the way it goes. But I would be shocked if the Steelers didn't add a wide receiver because I think there's some that are cut that are better than the bottom of their depth chart. Fair?
I agree. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Sherry, I hope you would be right. Sherry says Roman Wilson will be number 2 by week 8. That would honestly,
If
Roman Wilson's kind of the forget. I almost forgot to type him in when I was typing in the wide receivers. I'm like, who am I missing? Who am I missing? Oh, that's right, Roman Wilson. He's been hurt. So that would be really nice. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say about wide receiver?
just don't. We've spent a lot of the offseason and through training camp, and we've talked about the Steelers need to make a move. They need to make a move. It hasn't happened. That doesn't mean, as we know, it's not that the Steelers haven't tried. It's that the Steelers have only been, like the whole fiasco with Brandon Knight, the Steelers were willing to go so far, they weren't willing to go any further, which I don't blame them. There is a chance the Steelers could be rolling into the season with what we saw out there today. Or like you said, maybe a change towards the bottom, an upgrade towards the bottom of your depth chart.
Yeah.
What we need to hope for or see now is the continued good play from Van Jefferson that we've seen throughout training camp in the preseason. Getting Roman Wilson up to where folks feel he could become, and if we get some of those less experienced guys all moving the correct direction, I don't want to say that it's a number 2 receiver by committee, but it's could you handle a little less production from your wide receiver 2 in Van Jefferson than you would hope for a wide receiver 2 if you could gain a little more production from your wide receiver 3. Like if you take 2 and 3 combined, right? If you get what most teams get from their 2 and 3 combined, you're pretty much in the same place.
Yeah. And I know there's a name that was with Allen Robinson was released today, and people are like, oh, there you go. Well, you don't want to bring back last year's number 3 wide receiver to think that that's going to be your number 2 this year. That's not the direction you want to go. There's a couple of things you got to remember here, okay? And it has to go back, to me, it's going back to what all did the Steelers want to show in the preseason? Do they have more plans for Calvin Austin III than what they showed in the preseason? Maybe. But here's the big one that I think, because I did the numbers with this summer when I was still doing Stat Geek. But trust me, I'm enjoying Pittsburgh Standard Time a whole lot more. It's the alignment of tight ends in Arthur Smith offenses.
Yep.
Are we going to see Pat Freiermuth and or Connor Hayward, because he could be another guy that I feel could do that as well, lined up as a wide receiver, lined up in the slot.
Yep.
A lot. Because you're like, well, what's the point? Oh, well, wouldn't a receiver there be better? Yes, when it comes to passing it. But here's the thing. It's all about creating the matchups and getting the defensive package you want on the field. If you're running multiple tight ends, like, my goodness, the Steelers started with 3 tight ends, 1 running back, 1 receiver. That was the first snap on Saturday night.
Yep.
It wasn't Connor Hayward, right? It was Pruitt, Freiermuth, and Washington.
Mount Washington.
So if you come out there with 2 tight ends or even 3, and you're getting a very run-heavy defense, then you're getting Pat Freiermuth in the slot against a linebacker.
Yep.
Which is
I take that all day long.
Yeah, because the thing is, we're like, well, what's the difference? Well, if that's a wide receiver, chances are that's going to be maybe a nickel corner or a safety dealing with that. That's the difference. So yes, I get that you could probably get more receiving production from a receiver, maybe better, more diverse routes, getting into routes fast. Well, the difference between a wide receiver and a tight end,
and more yak, things like that potentially. But
it's getting that matchup because you're forcing the defense to have to prepare for you to line up big and just run the ball down their freaking throat.
Yeah, and you pop Pat Freiermuth out there, and every time you see a linebacker there, you can exploit it for 8 or 9 yards. Wouldn't you take that all day?
Yeah. And if they
Yeah.
decide that they're going to go with, we're just going to go with this package with some smaller guys, then guess what? Line up, run the football, and see if you can do it for 8 or 9 yards.
Yes. Exactly.
It's it's what I wanted for forever under Matt Canada. I felt they had an opportunity to do it even when Derek Watt was still freaking on the team. If you could line up those packages, and they did it a little bit when Ben Roethlisberger was still there in 2021, but not nearly enough. You need to be. This is the job of an offensive coordinator, and this is what Arthur Smith was not showing in the preseason. But it's funny because I know we're kind of jaded Steelers fans because we're like, well, is he not showing it because he's not going to do it? Or is this really the plan? Your job is to use personnel and formations to create mismatches. That is your job. That's what Matt Canada was not good at. We already saw it in training camp. They got freaking George Pickens trying to be defended by Patrick Queen. Why is a linebacker on the other team's best receiver? If the Steelers offense can do it, or maybe it's a problem with the Steelers defense, we don't want to go down that route. But if you can do stuff like that, that's your advantage. So the Steelers could be all right on how they use stuff, but like I said, I still think they're going to add somebody. Go ahead, read that one, Rich.
I like this. John Walter says, hopefully we don't see Freiermuth racking up receptions on 5-yard patterns on 3rd and 12.
On 3rd and 12, yes.
Yes.
And I've said this a lot. I really push back because Tim Benz constantly complains about this. And Tim Benz his Breakfast with Ben's podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. So, I'm communicating with him about stuff with various things each month. But one thing that he always talks about throwing short of the sticks on 3rd down. Oh, how terrible it is. The Steelers actually do it less than the NFL average. They do. And people are like, well, or it's right around the average. It's not like there's some egregious thing constantly throwing short of the sticks. I'm going to give you an analogy that if I ever get to talk to Tim about this, I'm going to bring it up. I'm like, hey, Rich, if you line up to run the ball, and you're going to run the ball like, for me, coaching high school football, man, it was the 4-hole. It was the guard tackle gap on the right side. That was where you felt like you could get your most, because that was your two biggest run blockers to move people and get your yardage there. If you're lined up with a play that's going to run in the 4-hole, and the team comes up with 3 extra people stacked on that side of the line and right off there, like they're coming up and blitzing it, and they're completely overloaded that side. Does it make sense to run right to where they're defending it?
Well, yeah, because we just want to impose our will on them.
But now
no, it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. Guess what? When it's 3rd and 9, guess where the defense is set up to have their most tough defense, where they're stacking everything in the pass game? It's 9 yards downfield. That would be like running it right into the strength of the defense when they line up on a run play that they're going to stop this guy. It's like trying to run a quarterback sneak. If they pinch in, if they put in an extra lineman and they pinch into both the what I would call the 1 and 2 gaps, the 1 and 2 holes, and have 2 linebackers standing there. It doesn't make sense to try to do the quarterback sneak. You're outnumbered. That's what teams do to defend on 3rd and long. They defend the sticks. So guess what you have to do most of the time? You either have to throw short of the sticks and try to get past them by deceiving them, or you got to throw over the defense. And you know how Steelers fans can't stand it. Oh, why on 3rd and 8 are we throwing it 20 yards downfield? But that's usually what you have to try to do if you're not going at the strength of the defense. All right, I'm back. All right, Steelers Nation, Austria gives us $5 dingo dollars and says, does anyone feel bad for the person from our lands? NFL, or our lads, sorry, NFL depth chart. Who has to take out the cuts? Think of that person today. The person, I don't go to that. I don't think I've used that website very much, but yeah, just think about, honestly, I kept looking for updates on Over the Cap to see if they're down to the 53-man rosters. Imagine having to go through all the teams and cut out all the players and figure out everything else in order to get down to those salary cap spaces. That's a lot of stuff, but that's a good point there, Marky D. We spent a lot of time talking about wide receiver and how to use stuff going forward. We really have. Rich, what else do you think? What else is next for the Steelers 53-man roster?
After the wide receiver room, Dave, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I figure there's another move or two out there based on what the roster looks like. But I don't know that that any other position is as done deal as that I would feel as confident about saying as I do wide receiver. Maybe running back, maybe.
I completely have one, and you're gonna.
And I know which one you're going to say. It would be probably my third one,
which is
corner.
Yeah, it's corner, and it's not just about ability; it's also about experience.
Yeah.
Think of this: the only cornerback on the Steelers' 53-man roster that was on the initial 53-man roster last year is Joey Porter Jr.
Yes.
Darius Rush was later. Corey Trice is on IR. That's one thing, but think about it. You've got your two starters, your two outside guys, and think how many times you play three corners. Between the next three cornerbacks, the only remaining three cornerbacks on the roster, you have a total of 39 defensive snaps at the NFL level during the regular season. 39 snaps of experience between those three players. Corey Trice, none. Beanie Bishop, none. Darius Rush, 39 snaps with the Steelers last year on defense. That's all the experience you have.
With the Steelers?
No,
with
in
the Steelers.
general. Corey Trice didn't play in the NFL last year. He was injured. Beanie Bishop's a rookie, and Darius Rush didn't play in any games for anyone outside of the Steelers.
Oh, so you're meaning that once you get down to the third guy, that's what we're looking at.
The third, fourth, and fifth guy,
okay,
they have a combined 39 NFL regular season snaps.
All right. I thought you were on a different track there. We weren't. Yeah. Yes, I got where you're going now. Took a minute. So, okay.
So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers add there just to add some veteran experience. Because, Darius Rush didn't have the greatest preseason, but that's all right. They still got him. Beanie Bishop, excited about what he can do. Corey Trice, thought he was doing great. Luckily, it seems like the groin injury was not a big deal. He was even, I think, back at practice today, at least somewhat. That's good news. Excited about those guys. But you also have to look at they aren't all that experienced. And I still think part of that isn't even that they're necessarily pulling the trigger. I think part of why they feel like they can go with some young guys is that they probably feel like they have that Patrick Peterson card in their pocket, if they have to use it now or later.
Yeah.
That they could still go back and sign him just to gain some leadership and mentorship as well. Experience.
Well, and really, if you look at the secondary as a whole, you've got a lot more experience at your safety positions.
Yeah.
You're so it's like all in all, your defensive backfield is not awful there. Almost every year we talk about a position somewhere where the Steelers are particularly inexperienced.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about it almost every year, a position somewhere. And ironically, it tends to be either safety, corner, or wide receiver.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. But I could see the Steelers doing it. It's another one of those. It's like, yes, it makes sense, Dave. Everything you said makes total sense there. But I wonder, and the Steelers might say, "Hey, we'd like to do this," but I don't feel that. I don't know. They feel they have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they, especially knowing that you do have that one. I'll be honest with you. If the Patrick Peterson option goes away, then you might start to be like, well, maybe we should make sure we get someone like that on the practice squad or something like that has some experience. I get that, and they still could do that anyway. But for those of you that want to poo-poo the whole idea of Patrick Peterson, remember this: Patrick Peterson played 1,096 snaps for the Steelers last year. That was 97% of the defensive snaps. If he comes back to the Steelers, it's not in that capacity.
Yeah.
So you're saying, oh, he's washed. He's just, you know what? Maybe
He's
Patrick
probably
Peterson
paying what?
at 20 snaps in a game is different than Patrick Peterson at 80 snaps in a game.
Right.
So
Yeah, if you're only asking him to go out there and play, if the Steelers brought him back today, hypothetically brought him back today, he, instead of playing over 1,000 snaps in the season, is probably looking in the 400 range.
and that's assuming it's all 17 games. Yeah.
Right. And I'm with you. At 400 snaps, I feel I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. Well,
But right now, with like a lot of folks, I don't think the Steelers are looking to have Patrick Peterson for 1,000 snaps.
Yes.
Or he'd
yeah,
already
it wouldn't.
be here.
Yeah.
If they
and
needed
here's
that.
the thing. Terry Richards says Shannon Sullivan is another option. That's right. He played for the Steelers last year.
Yes, he
You
is.
think about, he did a nice job. Well, no one's picked him up. He wasn't in any training camp. Don't know exactly what's going on. But here's something to remember. Shannon Sullivan's a good example because guess what? You know how many snaps he played for the Steelers last year on defense? 422.
Yeah.
And you think about how much you saw Shannon Sullivan. That's true. But that's the thing you have to remember when you're I don't know that the Steelers will do anything at corner. I just think they might have some other ideas that they can keep in there. It's kind of like
they may be all
and
right.
for people that did like Sullivan was one of the Steelers' better players in the secondary last year. He actually was. Whether you liked him or not, he was.
And the Steelers,
that's the thing. You are talking about some other stuff, but at the same time, sometimes veteran leadership. Now you're hoping that you get veteran leadership from Dante Jackson, but sometimes what you just need is some veteran leadership, even if you're not on the field all that much. That you know that someone goes down, we need something. They know what they're doing. They have the knowledge and the communication to step in and do it. That's the key to the secondary.
Yeah, a professional.
Yeah.
A true professional. So.
Yeah. So it's funny because John Ten came back to me and said, he's like, I kid you. He said, I think they're in good shape and Pat P could slot in for a guy like Elliott. Yeah, that's the thing. Would you rather have Jalen Elliott? The thing is, but Jalen Elliott gives you special teams.
Right.
Is Patrick Peterson going to come in and play special teams? That helps. Okay. And it's funny because then we get other people. The prodigal says Terrell Edmonds was released. Yeah, but I know he was a Steelers' former first-round draft pick. But at the same time, he's not even sticking around on teams' 53-man rosters that aren't overly loaded at the position. It's just not how much value does he really bring. So that's just one of those things. And honestly, Terrell Edmonds could have stayed with the Steelers for more money when he went to Philadelphia, and he didn't. So that's probably part of the reason why that hasn't been reconsidered. But I still think their young corners could be great, could work out great.
Yes. Maybe the Steelers are all right taking, getting some more snaps and getting some things out there for Beanie Bishop and Corey Trice. Maybe they're like, we're going to use these guys in a way where they're not getting tons of snaps, but they're going to gain some snaps and gain that experience. So,
yeah. You know what move I would love to see right now? Tomorrow, I would love to see the Pittsburgh Steelers sign Patrick Peterson to the practice squad.
That would be awesome. That would be.
I don't know that he would do it. Sign to the practice squad to get in with the whole idea of we'll get you up to speed with everything, and you can get ready and go in there.
Get you into make sure you're.
But that wouldn't even be worth it for him financially. I don't even think it would be. So, yeah, that's the issue there. All right, anything else you want to say? Are you ready to go on to our final question?
Let's roll to it.
Okay, here's the final question. Here's what's great. This is the last final question that's not asking about a Steelers score until when? Is the bye week at the end of October or the beginning of right around there?
Yeah. Right
Or is it
around
November? Wait. Until the
Oh,
bye
yeah.
week. Until the bye week. We'll be back asking for scores next week. Here's the question this week. Okay. It's kind of the question of the show of what's next for the Steelers. Rich is going to answer it first. Then I'll put it in the live chat for everyone else to answer. So, Rich, it doesn't have to be the only one. But and you can be as, how do I say it? You could be as general or as specific as you like. You could go specific player, not 21-14 Steelers. Oh, Wes, that's a good one.
That was a good one, Wes.
Oh, that's
I love
funny.
that.
Too early on the score. I'm sorry. Yeah, about a week and 3 minutes. Yeah, he got me flustered. That was pretty good. One move that you think the Steelers are going to make. You could name. You don't have to name player. You can just go position. Not that it's the only move, but the one move. Not that you want them to make. That you think the Steelers are going to make between now and week 1 that would change the 53-man roster from what it is right now.
Okay. And I'm going with the low-hanging fruit and saying there will be a change in the wide receiver room. The Steelers are going to do something there.
Yes. That's the low-hanging fruit, and that's the one that's easy. I would definitely take that answer, but now that you have, I got to think about it a little bit more. Yeah. Man. I'll go with the secondary piece, that they're going to add someone else to the secondary and take away someone from the secondary just to give a little bit more experience, because think about it. You've got your 3 main safeties, you got your 2 main corners, and then even though Miles Killebrew has a lot of NFL experience, he doesn't play a lot of defensive snaps. They don't have a lot of the experience behind that I wouldn't be shocked if they just make one move just to add experience, even if it's someone that isn't necessarily even on the field very much. That's what I'm going to say. And now I'm bringing it up now for everyone to answer of the one move that you could do. You can go big, you can go small. Thomas Riley says it's going to be a tie. Oh, no, sorry.
Yep. That's what I was waiting for.
Kathy was before all of them came out on all our platforms.
She was.
But it was after it came out on YouTube, so where she is. She says to sign a wide receiver. That's good. Thomas Riley says wide receiver. Wes is going specific wide receiver. Noah
if
Noah
you made
Brown.
me go specific, Wes, that's probably where I'd go specific. I'd probably go that same route.
That's the only name right now that I would even say. Otherwise, it would have to be someone that I wouldn't necessarily know, but I'd have to find out to see how much I like them. And honestly, I didn't know Noah Brown until I saw he was cut, and I then started to look at some stuff and watch some highlights, and then I got to know the name. You would say the name to be Noah Brown yesterday, I wouldn't know who you were talking about. But it's only because it was out there and I could look it up. But yeah, that's a good one, guys. Afton Forward says cornerback. I got to enunciate there. Steel Dog 88 goes wide receiver. Gavin Anthony says bring in a wide receiver like John Mechie or Noah Brown. We talked about the whole John Mechie thing. It's not impossible. It's just a lot harder to do now that the 53s, their 53 is set. John Walter says Cam holds out waiting for an extension. Kidding. Yeah, the Steelers signed a veteran center. I don't know if they'll sign a veteran center, but they could.
Sure, they could. That's one of those where
didn't even think
that would be a move where I'm not expecting Omar Khan to make that move. But if that move happened, I wouldn't. I would understand.
That would not shock me in the least.
I would understand it.
And honestly, I think the person would have to know they're coming in to be a backup. Okay. Yep. Ruben Stone says both corner and wide receiver. He's going both moves as the one thing they're going to do. You don't even have to go that far. Okay. Harvey Stone says Harvey Stone, wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
That's their move. Pittsburgh County 86 says Steelers trade Russell Fields to get Lenny back. I think he meant Kenny because L and K are next to each other on the keyboard. But just calling him Lenny is even funnier.
Yes.
Okay. So here we go. Joe, funny. Wes said how Hassenauer he was cut last year too. and wasn't on a practice squad. So, yeah, I don't know if we have anything more with people that are real, because I think the obvious thing is wide receiver. I just don't think it's
Yeah, I
going to
think so.
be. It's not the level that the majority of fans would like to see. But honestly, people that are here listening to this podcast, Mr. Woodside says cornerback, but fans that are here with us live and fans that are probably listening to this later on the audio platform, you have probably a more realistic sense of that with how that is with the Steelers. Could the Steelers somehow still pull off a blockbuster trade for a wide receiver? I'm not even going to say the name that's been floated around for forever, whether it's that or something else. It's not impossible. No. It's just as time has gone on, the likelihood has become less and less and less. So I'm not going to hold out hope for it. Okay. Pittsburgh Donnie said he did call him Lenny intentionally. So there we go. The prodigal 24 says Metcalf and CJ Henderson. I don't even know if Henderson's still out there or not. What's going on there? So I think that's everybody. So with that said, we've gone over a little bit. Make sure you're checking out all our podcasts. Obviously no post-game show. Stop clicking your pen on the microphone, Rich. Obviously it's not gonna. It sounds like the clicker when I'm trying to get my dog to do a trick.
Beg, Dave.
Sorry.
Sit up and beg. Sit up and beg. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Roll over. Play dead. That's a good one. We won't have obviously there's no post-game show because there's no game. So other than that, we should have a typical off-season weekend coming. Hey, guess what? Not this weekend, but the next weekend, the return of Last Minute Thoughts podcast on game day mornings. That'll be coming back. We're going to see what's happening with the Q&A. That we'd like to keep it around, but we've got to get the schedule right for where it can fit in and make sure that Jeremy's available to do it with everything with that. So there might be some information coming out on that, but that should still be fine for this weekend. Also, make sure you check it out, steelcurtainnetwork.com. Get in the contest. Seriously, get in the contest. Here it is. I'll show it one more time. Beautiful mini helmet signed by Mel Blunt. Make sure
While
you get
you
in
show
the
it,
contest.
while you show it off, Tom Vallejo said trade for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, he says trade for DK Metcalf as well. Also, make sure use that code. If you haven't done DraftKings before, use that code to get that free stuff. That's how I got
code.
started
The
with DraftKings
code
in the first place.
is curtain.
Curtain.
The code is curtain.
So, and those codes are great because they give you some free stuff. I built up stuff and just have rolled with it since I got my freebies. So, Rich, what do you have to say here to close us out tonight?
All right, to close out the night, Sherry Richards said, "Great show, guys. Hopefully you catch some fish this weekend, Rich." Unfortunately for Rich,
Oh no, this is
it is Residence Hall move-in weekend for Rich. I will be working Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so I do not get a holiday weekend. But I am okay with that because when I get to this holiday weekend, that means I have two big things coming up the following week.
Okay.
That would be opening day of bow season
Okay.
on Friday, followed
pretty
by
nice.
Pittsburgh Steelers football on Sunday. Hey, real quick reminder out there to folks, you could email me if you're interested at richschofield@yahoo.com. I do have tickets for sale still for the Dallas Cowboys game. I'm giving a really nice deal compared to what tickets are around the stadium. I went and double-checked them today. I got 2 tickets, section 539, row V, seats 12 and 13, for $390 a piece, which is about $75 or $80 less a piece than what you would pay currently on Ticketmaster.
Yeah. Hey,
So,
I want to piggyback. I've still got a couple games left that I have available. I just don't know which ones yet. Hopefully I know that by next Tuesday, and I can say that if you're looking for tickets. I also have a friend of both Big Bro and I that is a first-year season ticket holder now that has the Chiefs game on Christmas, and that's lower deck. They have lower deck seats. Chiefs game on Christmas, really good price. If you're someone who's looking for that one, that's not for everybody, but if that's you, let me know, and I can get you see what I can get you there.
So really, for me, this weekend coming up, although it's not going to be a great weekend for me, it actually ends up being good that there's no football this weekend because I wouldn't be able to watch any anyway. And then I get to look forward to hunting deer, and then getting back to regular season football. Finally. Can't wait.
Relax.